that I tell, and this goes. In fact, we just had a caller who was telling me that she has a small business in California, and they put on events, and she has already notified through her newsletter her customer base that if you want to come for one of our 3-hour events, you are going to have to bring proof of vaccination. And she said, outside of the one person who wrote her a letter saying that there's baby parts in the vaccine and the Pope is working for Satan, outside of that, the overwhelming response from her customers has been positive. I want to tell you a story about this, and this is in my article. Back in 1986, I had a dear friend. I still have a dear friend. He's a dear friend of mine. His name is Thom. He lives in Newton, Massachusetts, and he owned a restaurant. It was one of the top 10 restaurants in Boston at the time. It was called the Pillar House. It was really, really nice, fine white linen tablecloth, fine dining restaurant. And in '86, there were restaurants that, some restaurants just allowed smoking anywhere. Some had 4 smoking sections and non-smoking sections, but there was literally no such thing as a non-smoking restaurant in the United States. And my friend Thom said, that's it, I am going to turn my restaurant, which had been a family business. He was the 2nd or 3rd generation running this family business. He said, I'm going to turn this restaurant into an entirely non-smoking restaurant. No smoking in the restaurant, no smoking in the bathrooms, no smoking in the bar. So that this extraordinary quality food that my chefs are preparing, and the Pillar House had some of the best food I'd ever had, so that this extraordinary food can actually be tasted and smelled by my patrons. He made the entire restaurant non-smoking. We talked about it a lot before he did it. He wasn't seeking my advice. He was basically telling me what he was going to do, but we had a lot of conversations about it. And I thought, he's going to lose business. And what happened was the Associated Press picked up the story. It went national. Restaurants all over Boston started going non-smoking. His business, it used to take a week to get a reservation at that restaurant. It took 2-3 weeks, as I'm recalling. I'd have to ask him specifically. But what happened was, over the course of the next year or so, his business expanded substantially because people wanted. There were some smokers who were really pissed off, and they called up and leave nasty grams, or they would say, "I'll never again step foot," and Tom's response was, "Well, I'm sorry to see you leave, but." The big deal in marketing and advertising, I used to teach marketing. I've owned 2 ad agencies in my life, and I used to teach marketing for the American Marketing Centers. And I used to do marketing consulting for companies, advertising and marketing consulting for companies like Carnival Cruise Lines and American Airlines and American Express and Scientific Atlanta and Sony and CERTA. And these were all companies that were clients of ours. The National Security Agency, the NSA, the U.S. Army. Did a lot of work for a lot of these companies. And the question that I would always ask when somebody was trying to put together a marketing campaign was, what's your unfair competitive advantage? What is the one thing that you can do that your competitors are not willing to do or can't do well or don't know how to do or won't bother doing? What is it that you have that they don't have? And 9 times out of 10, that thing becomes what you build your marketing campaign around. And that's what Thom had done with not smoking in his restaurant. And it worked. And I'm telling you, within 6 months, this is my prediction. I may be wrong on this. I may be completely wrong on this. But if the Republicans continue this effort to prevent America from hitting herd immunity, if they continue this effort to prevent Americans from feeling safe when we go into restaurants or when we go into bars or whatever. And I'm telling you, this weekend, on Saturday, we had, one of my kids and spouse and 2 grandkids and the spouse's parents. We had a bunch of people in my house, first time in over a year, and I felt very uncomfortable. But everybody was vaccinated except the 2 little kids. And but I do not want to walk into a store, whether it's a furniture store or a restaurant or whatever. I don't want to walk into a store if they're letting people in who are not vaccinated. I want to walk into a store where at the front door they're asking to see my card. And I'm telling you, there's a whole bunch of us out there like that, just like there were a whole bunch of non-smokers in the 1980s who were desperately hoping that some restaurant would ban smoking completely. And my friend Tom did it, and it worked out really well for him. And I think if we start calling places of business and saying, I will patronize you again regularly when you require everybody in your store, including your employees, obviously, but all your customers, to have proof of vaccination.